Hi guys. So yeah, hi wherever you are. Good morning. Sunny one here today, which is good. Um, I want to talk about something that's been on my mind for a while. Something loads of people I know are afflicted with. I want to say, or it's bothered or hard or whatever. And it's depression. So yeah, what makes what makes me want to talk about it? It's just everywhere. I know so many people that suffer with depression for tons and tons and tons of different reasons. These are getting a bit like therapy sessions for me, these, aren't they? So I only feel it's right that if I'm going to talk about something like that, I need to be talking from a first-hand point of view. So without going into a proper full-on psychotherapy session, so to speak, I'll keep this brief. So I wasn't the most confident of kids. I was one of the smallest in my class. There was one girl who was smaller than me, and that was it. But so I was lacking in confidence, seriously lacking in confidence, and I was bullied. Obviously, because I was the smallest, I was bullied. And yeah, home life wasn't particularly wonderful for me. I was one of those kids that was always out. I'd be anywhere other than at home. Staying at home to me was let's face it was more like a punishment, because that's what I had to do. If I was punished for anything, that's what I was made to do. I had a sister who was not brought up with me, lived around the corner from me. I knew who she was, where she was, everything. And as I was growing up, I was told that she was nothing to do with me. She wasn't my sister. I was to have nothing to do with her, and if ever I was found out to have spoken to her, I got into serious trouble. Well, not being funny, but these type of things are going to have effects on you, aren't they? My way of dealing with the bullies was to try and be the funny guy. So I used humour to get friends, to stop being bullied. So I'd do silly things, dancing in the rain or whatever it might be, to get people to think of me as the funny guy, and people, to be honest, don't tend to bully the funny guy. And it kind of worked for me to some extent, but it doesn't. It just hides what's really happening. It hides what you're really feeling. You kind of suppress feelings a lot more, I think, because nobody wants to hear the funny guy being serious about stuff. They don't talk to the funny guy for that reason. They talk to him because they want to be cheered up, or because he's going to say something or do something funny in a minute. Just watch, haha. But as I said, it doesn't really. All those other little problems are still there. Strangely, they're still there. You're still having to deal with them. Now, when I was at school, I had a major thing. I don't know if I've ever mentioned it before or anything, but I had a major incident where, for me anyway, where a headmaster decided that we were going to have a talk. We were going to discuss everything that was wrong with my school life, just between me and him, and we'll see if we can't make a plan and sort it out. Well, yeah, he sorted it out. Yeah, no problems. He told every single teacher, everything, even my parents. I tried to run away once when I was about 10 years old, believe it or not, and I'd had thoughts of doing it again. So basically, he told my dad that as well. So even before I've even left the school gates, I'm already in trouble for what I've spoken about. So I've always bottled up feelings and thoughts and things like that to deal with myself at a later date. That's kind of how it was. I left home at 16. I lived in my mate's shed for 2 weeks. And then a friend's mum put me up. And then another friend's mum put me up. Eventually I met Nikki when we were young. And, we were 17 when we met. So a lot happened in a kind of short period of time, but all these feelings and everything else are still there. Now, as I said, I think a lot and try and sort stuff out myself. I'm not one for talking because of obviously the way things have gone in the past for me. Even with Nikki knows that if I've gone quiet, maybe a little sullen, she might say moody git, it's probably something on my mind. If it's something I feel that needs to be discussed, I'll do that, but only once I've decided that it's something that actually needs to be discussed. Not everything does. Sometimes it's best just to keep quiet, and you realise that it's just a problem that's in your own head. And I think this is the thing with depression. It's in your head. It doesn't matter how big or small a problem is. It's your problem. And to you, that's going to be the biggest problem ever. I had a friend who didn't work, suffered with a lot of pain, but had so much time on his hands to think. And thinking, oh my word, what a terrible thing to have to do on your own. He would think, and he would tell me about his problems, and I would listen, and once a week I'd go and see him, and a lot of the time I'd be hearing the same stuff he told me the week before. I don't care. It doesn't bother me. It didn't bother me. I was there for him. He needed to voice those opinions and voice what was in his head, and it made him feel better. That's fine. Sometimes I'd say, oh, I would do it this way, or I think you should do this, I think you're overthinking it, or whatever. The following week he'd turn around and tell me my thoughts about what it was he was talking about, which again, it's fine. I was, anyone who works, you're lucky to some extent, because if you're working, you don't have to, you've got things that'll go on your mind and other things. If you've got a hobby, hobbies are always a good one, because again, they take your mind off of something else and you concentrate on what you're doing. So your problems for at least a little while aren't as bad or aren't there. You can kind of ignore them. The signs for depression, certainly for me, when mine kicked in. Now mine kicked in when I was a manager for Courts Furnishers, and we'd taken the shop business from 800,000 a year to 1.4 million. We'd done that in 3 years. We'd halved the staff, and I was struggling. And instead of thinking the obvious, which is we doubled the business and half the staff, that's going to affect things and make things tougher, I thought I was failing. I couldn't get that out of my head. And the signs that I exhibited and showed were that basically I lost interest in everything. Now back then, now it's nature, but back then it was football. Football was my passion. I played football 4 or 5 times a week. I'd play on a Thursday night for about 3 hours. And even when I broke my wrist and I couldn't drive and I was coming back on the train, I'd get so ratty if the trains were late, because it meant I wasn't going to get to football, even though I shouldn't have been playing anyway. But I would get really, really sort of fed up. Like, oh, I'm going to miss football. Oh, like it was the be all and end all. Oh my word, my life's going to end because I can't get to a game of football. But it was like that. I was so into it. I so enjoyed it. That's what I did. But when the depression kicked in, I stopped playing. I stopped doing a lot of things that, obviously for Nikki, it was fairly obvious that there was a huge thing wrong. But I wouldn't discuss it. I wouldn't do anything about it. So eventually she went to see the doctor about something, and when she came out, the doctor called me, and it was on a particularly bad day, on a particularly down day, and he said, how are you? And I think that's all it took, really. I think I just broke down in his office, and that was it. I don't think I talked a lot about what was actually causing it. I just then said, I just feel flat, just totally flat, nearly all the time. I can't motivate myself. I just can't be bothered. What's the point? So he put me on some pills. The pills didn't work, first of all. I went back a few weeks later. How are you doing? Same So you give me something else, they were a little bit stronger, and they started to work, and they changed my mentality. Now this with me got so bad that I can remember driving down the M5 on the way home one evening, because I worked in Weston-super-Mare, lived in Exmouth. There's an hour and a half drive each way. Every single day I'm doing that. You know, at one point at work we were so low on staff, you're doing sort of 3 weeks without a day off. And I got to the stage where I'm driving home one day, and obviously you go around the curve or whatever, and I can remember thinking to myself, why don't I just not steer? I just keep going straight. You know? But I still wouldn't admit to myself at that point that there was a problem that I needed to do. Obviously I didn't do it. I carried on as normal. But like I said, I got these second lot of tablets, and well, they made a huge difference. I don't think they didn't cure me. I'm not going to say they cured me, because I don't think that's the right word. What they did is something obviously ticked off in my head that went, I haven't changed. I'm still me. I'm still doing my job to the best of my ability. The conditions have changed. The company's changed. The company had changed to instead of accepting that all stores are different, even if you're a multinational company like Courts, where 150 stores I think they have, you can't treat them the same. But they were trying to. They were trying to treat a little seaside town like Weston-super-Mare like the big superstore at Bristol. Now the thing is, we were making more money than the Bristol store because we had old people, and old people would come for the days out and were buying stuff from our store and having it delivered when they got home. But they were trying to treat us like everybody else. Now I wish companies would stop doing this. It puts more pressure on your management, because you're dictating too much on how they should be running their shop. For me, it just really got me down. It was like, I know how to run a shop. I know what my local, I'm a manager. That's my bleeding job, and you're trying to tell me that that's not my job anymore. I can't do this, I can't do that. Courts did loads of stupid things, and to be honest, it was no surprise when they went bust. I'd left by then, but even when I left, I sent an email out to all users. There won't be a company if you carry on as you are. 2 years later, they're gone. No surprise, nobody was happy. Every time you rang anyone, they weren't happy. But for me personally, the pills gave me that bit of something, and I was going into managers' meetings and things like that, and just really just arguing it out, calling it out as it was. All the other guys were like, oh yeah, we're going to say this, we're going to say that. We're going to one meeting in particular, nobody said an absolute word. I was the only person complaining and saying what was going on. So for me, my depression sort of kicked in there properly, but I don't think you ever get over it. I think if you know anyone who's ever had depression, keep an eye on them, because I don't think you ever get over it. I really don't. I think you learn to deal with it and maybe recognise the signs if you're lucky. For some people they can't. Some people will never get over what's caused their problem. Mine seems petty in comparison, but it obviously culminated from my youth, from what happened as I grew up, my childhood. I mean, I love, there's one phrase I've always loved, and I think it's absolutely spot on and fantastic, and that is that we are all reactions to our parents. So whether that's a positive or a negative, it's true. How many times when you were a kid you go, no, I'm never doing that when I have kids. I'm never saying that to my kid. I'm not going to make my kid do that. Often you do anyway, because it's just one of those things. I mean, I'm never going to say, because I said so. I'll guarantee you probably have. Because sometimes it's just that's the answer. There's no point going into it and arguing about it. At the end of the day, that is the answer. That's what you've said. That's what's going to happen. It's just one of those things, I guess. So So for me, that was my, I was going to say time with depression, but it's like I said, it's always there. You always feel that it wouldn't take much to just sink back into that, to let things affect you that same way. As I said, I know so many people that have suffered with it or suffering with it, and lots of different reasons. For some people, I had a young lad when I was working last, and I'm an assistant manager of a shop. My responsibility was volunteers, and I took my responsibility seriously. And my volunteers could always come and talk to me. Now, one of the lads came to me one day, and he was in his early 20s. I said, "Oh, I've been told I need to speak to you." I said, "Well, what do you mean you've been told to?" "Yeah, my doctor said I've got to speak to you." I said, "Okay. So what do you need to talk about? Are we talking about football or what? I'm assuming it's something a bit more serious than that." And he said, "Yeah, I've got to tell you that I've tried to take my life." Early 20s. It's just horrible. It's just, when someone says that to you, you're just like, what the hell? No, I wasn't trained to deal with things like that. But, I listened to him, I spoke to him, and I told him, if you need to speak to someone, just pick up the phone, mate. I know we don't know you that well, but maybe that's a good thing. But, that final thing is a permanent solution to what in most cases is a temporary problem. We get comments on our channel, "Oh, Darren's funny." Hey, yeah, I am. Okay, well, I think I am. Some people think I am. I try to be. I'll try to lighten things because life's too short, and I think it's good to laugh. It's good to have a joke. If you can't do that, Christ, life would be miserable, wouldn't it? But that's my way of coping with things and doing things. I guess because of the way I grew up, I like to be the funny guy in the room. Having said that, I'm still, if you put me in a room of strangers, I'm going to be very quiet, and it takes a long time then. I'm not the guy that goes into a room of strangers all confident and everything else. I suffer terribly with imposter syndrome, which, if you're not familiar with it, basically means that it doesn't matter how good you are at your job, you still think that someone's going to come and catch you out, and that you're going to be found out for being fake. So I've always increased business where I was, been the top salesman, that kind of thing. We were successful with even when I transferred it to nature, and we were breeding the birds, I was still good at what I was doing, but I still kept expecting someone to always expect someone to come and catch me out and say, "Oh, you're not as good as you think you are," or "You're not as good as that, you're rubbish," it's just something I've always suffered with. Again, obviously down to my upbringing. Whatever I did obviously wasn't good enough. So, So I've suffered with depression, same as a lot of people. There's nothing special about me. There's nothing you can do. Like I said, it's in your head. Even if it's something little, it doesn't matter how little it is. It's your problem, which means it's a big problem. So if you know anyone or suspect anyone might be suffering with depression, guys, give them a chat, give them a call, say hi, check they're alright. It doesn't take much, but something as simple as that can make such a big difference to someone who's suffering, someone who's struggling. And who knows, maybe one day you'll be the one that needs help. We don't know what's going around the corner for any of us, do we? We don't know how we'll react to anything, any one given situation. Depression. Oh, what a lovely way to start the day. So wherever you are, guys, keep happy, keep smiling. Bye for now. Cheers.